Hello everyone, Mr.CanKnotNot here. As the title says, I did in fact watch the How to Train Your Dragon live action remake. It was pretty solid. I loved the CG and, a lot of stuff that blew my mind. Like, it took me like 2 seconds of going over looking, I'm like, wait, did they? And then one small thing, I'm a geek. I don't think, and again, this is my take. If you don't want spoilers, I'll probably try to leave a timestamp or something. But I can guarantee you that I am blown away that they did digital prosthetics. Hiccup's leg was a digital prosthetic, which means potentially Gobber's is as well, but that is actual, like, that looks more tangible, that it was more connected to the environment. Not to say that the prosthetic leg that Hiccup has was not by all extents. They like I'm still geeking out about that. That was amazing. Strongly would recommend, if you haven't seen it, go watch it already. If you've seen the original movie, you're not missing too much. I will go over and say before I shift, because I can spend so much time going on and on about, like, I love the CG, the designs of the dragons, little stuff like, oh wait, they have the species that Skullcrusher was within the dragon's nest, which makes a bit of an explanation. A little bothered that they retconned the Thunderdrum that Stoic ends up taming within the TV series, but that's its own thing. And honestly, given what happened with Skullcrusher, I'm kind of glad they're retconning it, because it would work better. It would explain right off the bat how Stoic has the tracker to begin with. Now, as I said, there's so much that I could talk about the film. That's great. Again, 100% recommend it and advise. Like, if you want to go see it, 100% I recommend it. My somewhat minor grievances, the quality was good. Story was plot for plot. Like, it was pretty well focused on keeping the narrative of the films intact. But my biggest critique is that they were looking for so much representation for, like, different groups. Like, Burke went from being this Nordic clan that has been there for generations to, well, we're just coming from all across the globe to this one point because we're hunting the dragons in their nest. Completely undermines a lot of the narrative that was there. The way that I've seen, and even Burke was painted within the animated films, was this kind of, think like an old country town, somewhat secluded, seems to be out in the middle of nowhere. People know of it. You have a really strong leader who cares about everyone who's there. Everyone seems to know them, but at the same time, not a lot of people know of the location. Where they know of the location and that, but it's an obscurity. This isn't like the entirety of the world knows and everyone's coming to this location because of one reason or the other. It is an obscurity. A little area out in the middle of nowhere that just so happens to have a legend come from it. Not just one, but his kid as well. And turns out the kid is going over and doing a bunch of stuff. And Hiccup ends up becoming, this beacon throughout the stories of, this leadership, this Viking to ride the dragons. And that was kind of the narrative. So to see the shift from that, and again, I will go over and say, and I will give props, having the kind of like the fortune telling from the elder would definitely ties in and would shows a lot of like the Nordic culture from that time period. And I'm not saying by any means I'm against having different groups within it. I just feel like it's a little bit of a smack in the face of Nordic culture to go over and be like, well, here's something that's entirely based off of a Nordic tribe. Let's just have everyone across the globe go over and do it. And then it feels like, for a good portion of the film, noticeably, there is this kind of like, we're going to make it known that there are women who are fighters. Sure, you have the joke that was made, you have all the stuff that's going on, but they're like, for like these brief periods in the film, it's like, we're going to make the girl boss character stand out just a bit more. See that this person's from Africa, this person's from Russia, this person's from South America. Don't you want all of your clans to be good as well? It's like, you have in the second film the meeting of the chieftains. You could have easily focused on keeping it as a generational, unknown or lesser known like civilization, and you could have brought extra people in the second film. Burke was known to have done trades within the TV series and even the movies. It's, people know of Burke, having a meeting of chieftains, like the greatest chieftains of that generation meeting up. Like, there's a possibility that trade could have been done, but at least try to keep that to it. And the thing is that also raises for the multiple tribes working there, and then the structure of how it works. Like, oh, Top Slayer. Now Top Slayer's gone. Are they just going to say that Stoic's bloodline stays as chief? Is Hiccup now staying as chief, and they're going to have to work around this Top Slayer or, best chief type thing? I doubt it. I feel like a lot of the story is kind of shifted a lot because of this. So I'm curious to see what comes of it, but I just feel like that little narrative line is so impactful to the story that what would have been minor just throws it out the window. Drago, I would be surprised if he doesn't know about Burke. Maybe doesn't know about the dragons, the dragon taming. I mean, that could be a possibility. But considering that you have all of these different people who are there from all these different tribes, most likely resources coming in from all these different tribes, how would Drago not realize that the chief of Burke is still alive and well? To me, it blows my mind. So not only is this we're going to bring a bunch of different tribes from different areas, but it takes away from this Nordic pride and heritage. And that bugs me, because, this is how they would have worked. Historically, you have these clans, these tribes that kind of work amongst themselves. Maybe there'll be deals or whatever, arranged marriages between tribes, or different tribes members would get together, and then you have mergers and all this other stuff. But they would have been like they would have been in the original film. I don't think anyone could say there's really any hate, harmful stereotypes or negative, hateful anything in it. Frankly, the bit of a modern twists within the animations, but for the most part, they actually did a pretty good job of keeping that. Maybe I'm missing something from the books, but I'm one of those people that I've seen the films and I go to watch movies because it's movies. And when I find out there's a book adaptation, I'll find my way to the written media eventually and do a comparison there. See if I like it as a standalone thing, or if it did actual justice to what's going on. Now, the other big issue was, as I said, this kind of pushed narrative of the girl boss type archetype. Astrid, Stoic liked Astrid, thought Astrid would lead the clan, and it's like, hold up. Where is this narrative coming from? Sure, as time goes on and progresses, you have this, the leader of the local fire department, who is one of the teens in the upcoming generations. Definitely he would have the appeal for, Hiccup, high profile chieftain's son, who would be the next chief of Burke if he didn't die or, he was outed. He would want his son to go over and be with someone of such a high profile. But I don't think with how much they're like, oh yes, Astrid, we're gonna start you're like the daughter I never had, and it's like, hold up, huh? And it's like different narrative approaches. Like in the scene with like Toothless, like sure Astrid goes over and says something, but with how intelligent Astrid is, why would they, if they're trying to go over and help Hiccup without being too much like they're better, the best thing they did is probably sitting in the background going over and saying no, don't, rather than directly getting involved in trying to block Stoic. I just don't think that's a good idea, because the thing is that Hiccup got disowned. That was his own kid. Astrid probably could have just been shipped off, executed, whatever. So there was more of this logical, like, sit back, don't do it, but I'm not going to go over and, do the stupid thing of going over and getting in front of the chieftain, who's now mad that their kid decided to partner up and try to, be buddy-buddy with the enemy. That's just not a wise idea, which is why we see Astrid go to Hiccup later and being like, man, like, you done mess up. You pretty much lost everything. But what are you going to do about it now? And the thing is that in the live-action remake, there is this kind of air about Astrid that, sure, they were the best. You had that, that like, how is this nobody getting the best of me? And I don't like that they were like, well, you're playing, like your dad's playing favorites. We got all this stuff going on. They were just pushing him around. Why? Because this was a village of generations. Everyone there knew each other. It's a little hard to not know who the troublemakers are, who's pretty much the nitwit of the group, because everyone knew each other. And sure, everyone knows each other in the film, but it seems a little disjointed from the original narrative and the characterizations that were presented. But then Astrid, the entirety of the time, was constantly... It felt more like Astrid was vying for main character vibes, and it presented just a bit of clash that was not inherently needed. There was already enough clash between the characters to begin with. You already had this, nobody that's becoming a somebody going over and outdoing you. You're the class president. You're the valedictorian. Like, you have this nobody who's been messing up every step of the way. This nerd going over and stepping on your turf. Yeah, like a little irked. But what is happening in the film, it just seemed like there was this more presence, like, look at Astrid. Look. And even then, there's a lot of times where Astrid was interceding at times. Was flat out going over and saying things and doing things that seemed to be like, what's the point of Hiccup growing up? What's the point of Hiccup finding his place? What's the point of Hiccup realizing that he has the ability to be a chief? Second film, he's running from that. Are we going to see Astrid still stepping up and, like, being more like, well, I guess I'm going to have to, we're going to have to consider this because, of what's going on. But, it's going to be a lot more disjointed if the characterization of Astrid keeps being overdone. Astrid was a girl boss, 100% in the original film, 100%. But it's not disjointed like it has to be there. Astrid's as much of a main character as Hiccup is, but the entirety of the point is Astrid knows that they're a leader, and they're stepping back and trying to help Hiccup gain that confidence. Second film, well, you want to be a peacekeeper, sometimes that's not going to be a good choice. Third film, Hiccup is in the place of chieftain, appreciates the help from everyone, but is vying with this. A good leader has to work by himself. A good leader is going to be able to do things by themselves. Suppress a concern. Sometimes, what he learned in the second film, all this stuff is going on. So my biggest concerns with narrative, like, points again going forward, is that the characterization is going to still be very disjointed. There's going to be a heavy focus on all of these different like micro points that are just going to build up to this big issue. You're going to have all these micro points that are kind of interlocked and causing more issues than good. Again, I still don't see how they can say that Drago would be unaware of what's going on with Burke, would have no idea that Stoic was alive. And then you have the third film where you have oh, I forgot the character name, but the one hunter knew of Stoic, knew of stuff that's going on, but it just felt like with the first film and a lot of the stuff that kind of narratively just slightly shifted, it disrespects the inherent design and the respect for the culture and the representation that was actually given. And, maybe I'm misunderstanding something, but it's going to make it so much more difficult, and they're going to have to shift so much of the story from the first film to the second film. Like, sure, okay, Hiccup's going to be chief, go on and on and on, but now they're going to have to explain what's going to happen after, the fact, like, what, is it going to be head tamer? Is it going to be, like, what's going on? And then in the third film, when they, let the dragons do their own thing, what's going to happen there? They can't go back to Top Slayer. It blows my mind. And I'm both intrigued and interested in seeing what they decide to do with it. But I'm also concerned about narratively where things are going to head to. So, again, amazing graphics, amazing design, on par with the plot points of the first film. Can't sing enough praises for the amount of technical ingenuity and the structure of the film. Genuinely surprised that they got away with slipping a lot of the profanities in there, but then chose to censor stuff like idiot. I can see some regards, but I'm still confused about others. Overall, as I said, amazing film. I just hope that the narrative plot points and conflictions actually do get addressed relatively quickly, or that there is a explanation that would better ground that recreation of the environment as a in-universe, connection. Maybe all these tribes had like task forces go out that wasn't mentioned, and Stoic being alive, this would have been before Volko was taken. So you have all of these different story points that could very well be intertwined and happen. I just feel like it's going to be a little harder to work around than it would have been if you had just left it at the generations. But yeah, that is my take on the How to Train Your Dragon live action remake. Overall, that it's actually a really good film and that I do recommend everyone go check it out. So, until the next one, whether it be a gaming moment or a memorable rant, I will see you all later. Bye. This is the credits. It is the end song. Time to see the funny little moments pieced together. I don't know what I'm doing now. I am now just kind of ranting. Just in general, I am just ranting. For the sake of ranting. If I could rant any harder, it might as well just be called rant dressing at that point, because sheesh, I should probably go change the controller batteries now. But I am stuck in this moment of, I've said everything I wanted to, feel like I could probably say more, but I've already done everything I need to, and I'm sitting here like, what do I do now? What do I do now? Probably something to do later. Edit, 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 upload, edit, 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 upload. The cycle continues. And yes, actually, within the play space, I actually have the giant screen here, and then I have the one for the second window, like right over like here. So there's definitely space continuity here. You have to take my word for it. It's not letting me drag the. Do I need my controllers for this? Do I genuinely need to have my controllers to fix a screen? To fix a screen. 28 minutes ain't too bad. Probably gonna cut that down to like 15 or less, but still worth it. Still pretty good. I ain't gonna complain.